The theme here in Hebrews 4 is the long view of things. God is here trying to elongate our view into eternity. And many of us, we're worried about our weekends and our days off and our vacations, but the Bible speaks of the heavenly kingdom or the kingdom of heaven as an eternal rest. That's the language we find here in Hebrews 4. In the Bible, when it comes to the kingdom of heaven and the eternal state and what comes after this life for those who believe in Jesus Christ, it uses a constellation of images and metaphors: party, garden, home, city, kingdom, and here, Sabbath. Sabbath literally means to cease or to rest. So the entire point of Sabbath is that you cease from your work and you rest to enjoy the people and things that God has given you, starting with God himself. A Sabbath, we're told here, it's preparation for heaven. When you take a day off, it reminds us that eternity is coming, when the curse is lifted and all is restored and we're in God's presence. And we don't have the curse and the work and the fear and the anxiety and the demonic opposition and the evil that we have today. And it'll feel like an eternal rest at the soul level for the children of God. And so what we do today is we take a day each week to Sabbath, and it is to prepare us and to practice for the eternal rest in the kingdom of heaven. When it comes to heaven, for those of you who may be new to Christianity, it is both a place and a person. It is a kingdom and it has a king. The place is the kingdom, the person is the king. And so ultimately, for us who believe the Bible, there is no heaven without Jesus Christ. It's not just a place that we go to. If Jesus wasn't there, it wouldn't be heaven. If Jesus is there, then his presence makes it heaven. And so for us, heaven isn't just going to a place, it's going to a place ruled by a person who loves us and we love the most. And his name, of course, is Jesus Christ. This is why some people don't have an interest in heaven, because they don't have an interest in Jesus Christ. Because Jesus Christ ultimately is the eternal rest. He said, and I quote, "Come to me, you are weary and burdened and heavy laden, and I will give you rest." That ultimately he is our eternal Sabbath. That he finished the work of salvation so that we can rest in the security of his provision and affection. And so the theme here is Sabbath or rest. But the rest in this life is to prepare us for the eternal rest in the life to come. So I want to talk briefly about the Sabbath. And here, the author of Hebrews in chapter 4, he quotes Genesis 2. This is where we find the introduction of the concept of Sabbath in the Bible. Genesis 2 and 3 says this: "On the seventh day, God finished his work that he had done, and he rested on the seventh day from all the work that he had done. So God blessed the seventh day and made it holy, because on it God rested," or Sabbath, "from all his work that he had done in creation." God establishes a 7-day week. 6 days of work, 1 day of rest. He does this from creation. This is why we have to this day a 7-day week. And what's interesting is, in the history of the world, there have been atheistic nations that hate the Bible, that have tried to conceive of some way to have a regular rhythm without a 7-day week. And there were attempts that have been made. For example, in the 18th century, the French Revolution, and in the 20th century, the Soviet Revolution, both of which were atheistic, they decided, we're going to run some experiments and see if we can't come up with something other than a 7-day week, because we hate the Bible and we hate God and we want to abandon Christianity. All of their efforts failed. It's as if the same person who created the world also created the 7-day week, and it only works if you operate accordingly. The point is this: God establishes things, and if we abide by them, we live in the rhythms of his grace. If we violate them, it simply breaks our life, and it's dysfunction and broken and doesn't work. And so what God establishes is a 7-day week, 6 days of work, 1 day of rest. Briefly, some of you would ask, why do we have 2 days off? We shouldn't. Your employers are going to really love this point in my sermon. We as Americans tend to think that a 40-hour work week is a big deal. Frankly, it's not. When it came to establishing the Sabbath day in America, or in the Western world, the debate was, well, the Jews take Saturday because that was historically their Sabbath. The Christians take Sunday, also called the Lord's Day, because it's the day of Jesus' resurrection. Which one should we take? And we decided we would take both. Okay? And so what I'm telling you is this: if you're a Christian employee, you should work harder than everyone else, And you should be willing to give some of your day to your employer because God says you get 1 day off, and if they give you 2, they're giving grace to you. That God's children should be more productive than those who are just pagans. For this reason as well, I have always worked 6+ days a week, and if I've ever sinned, it's been not taking the Sabbath, not taking too much Sabbath. But if God works 6 days and rests 1, I have no problem working hard for 6 days and then resting for 1. That being said, this principle was given in Genesis, and it established a healthy pattern and rhythm for the people who were to come from the descendants of Adam and Eve. 6 days of hard work under the Lord, 1 day of Sabbath rest to worship and enjoy the Lord as well as his people. And then what happened is, over time, if you take the next book of the Bible, Exodus, the family that began in Genesis, they went into the nation of Egypt during a time of famine. They were a family of roughly 70 people. Within 400+ years, they grew to be a nation of over 1 million people. And the Pharaoh who ruled that nation, he enslaved them and he abused them. And what you don't give your slaves are days off and vacations. There's no such thing as sick leave for a slave or a mental health day for those of you in your 20s. Okay. You're a slave. You just do your job and go to work. So perhaps for upwards of more than 400 years, God's children, one generation after the next, were never given a day off. Imagine that. 400 years of your family, 0 days off. So God then judged the Pharaoh, he delivered his people, and he allowed them to start to enjoy a day off. Thanks for joining me. My name is Pastor Mark. I've been teaching the Bible for more than 3 decades and head on constant collisions with woke culture. And I would love to get you more Bible teaching. 2 things you can do. Go ahead and watch the sermon in total and also subscribe to the channel. And I'll just keep sending you Bible teaching and we'll have a lot more fun together.